Hey everybody, welcome to BlockRoots. I am Josh. As always, it's good to see you. Hope you're having a great weekend. And on today's video, we're going to talk about altcoins. We're also going to look at the Bitcoin chart. We're also going to get some thoughts from Cantor Clark on what he thinks that could possibly happen as far as Bitcoin. You can find all of that actually on Twitter right now, but we'll take a look at it. We'll also talk about Chainlink, Tezos, some privacy coins, and we'll give away $100 in Bitcoin as we always do on here on BlockRoots. And if you're interested in winning $100 of Bitcoin each and every week, we want to give away Bitcoin to one subscriber that engages with the content of our videos. So if you want to do that, click the red subscribe button. The only thing you have to do after that is go down and leave a comment on this video or any of the future videos, and we'll actually put you in the drawing for $100 in Bitcoin. You can say anything that you want, any of your thoughts. We're always happy to hear feedback. So again, thanks for being a part of the community. And let's go ahead and check out the chart. So with Bitcoin, right? Let's go ahead and this is the zoomed out picture. We're gonna get back to this in a minute, but let's go ahead and look at the daily. And as you can see, this entire week, for the most part, after a slight pullback, we've seen Bitcoin bounce and continue to trend up. And really, this has been a common theme. Bitcoin is in an uptrend. As I talked about, I showed in a chart earlier this week on Twitter, I showed how we're hitting higher highs and higher lows over the course of the last month. Many people have talked about, hey, Josh, hey, you need to look at the weekly chart as far as a trend change. And all I have to say is that the weekly chart looks just as good, or if not better, than the daily chart, right? One of the biggest things is we know that we have the weekly close tomorrow. If I were to go ahead and take this horizontal line, you're going to notice that if we can stay above 9556, we're going to be looking at a new weekly high, a higher high overall on the trend. And so for me, that is a clear signal that, yeah, this is truly on an uptrend. Not to mention, if you go back to the daily, right, you see a matter of higher highs and higher lows. And so what we've seen is that the previous high, right, Bitcoin has went up above it, came back down, tested that area, and pushed back up. We also noticed too on the previous, of course, Bitcoin did drop back down, but if we were to take, right, even around here, as far as the body of the candles, you're going to notice that Bitcoin came back down and at least retested the body, right? Here, the wick, but again, the same thing. If I were to take this in the previous high, right? What happens? Bitcoin goes up, comes back down, tests that, and continues on. And so this has been pretty bullish for the most part as we continue to see higher highs and higher lows on the trend right here. Now, are we going to be due for a potential pullback? Certainly so, right? I'm not going to say that, again, when it comes to uptrends, eventually they go sideways. They do have pullbacks. As you've seen here, we've had a couple of different pullbacks. If I were to take the price here, go from the high to the low, right? 10% pullback there. As far as before then, right? 9%. So 9 to 10% pullbacks. This one wasn't as extreme over the past couple of weeks here, but again, it's not out of the question that we're going to see pullbacks. And so the bullish thing is again just with the potential weekly close above. And I also want to take a look. Go ahead and look at Cantor Clark. And so BlockRoots, Cantor Clark is, of course, my partner here on BlockRoots. And he had some really great things to say. And again, one of the things that you want to look at is the order book. You want to look at more than just price itself, right? So what a lot of people don't pay attention to is that gets ignored is just the amount of selling that's going on, but price staying stagnant, it holding. And so what Cantor Clark said on this one is that this one seems a bit simple right now. Pretty obvious cumulative volume delta divergence, and basically this area has been heavily sold. Now let's just get the price back up above 9,800 and right under the key market structure. No major rejections, just grind. And so really what we're seeing here again is anytime the price tends to hold heavy selling in a certain area, that's because we see the bigger players, the whales, whatever you want to call them, right? The heavier hand will hold price up with limit buys. And so that's always a positive thing. Just like when there's an aggressive buying and you see price kind of stick to one area and it doesn't get any higher, that means that the heavier hand is in there doing some limit sales, holding the price where they want it to go. And eventually you tend to see that price come back down. But in this case, certainly we hope to see price move back up. And so that's kind of been the case recently with aggressive selling up in this area in the mid to high 9,000s, with price continuing to hold where it's at. So that in itself is a bullish argument. Now also too, a couple other things that Ryan says, let's go ahead and pop this up, is that it's really, really hard to look at this chart and not think that if 10K gets popped, that 14K is a breeze with the amount of FOMO we could see, okay? If this was your favorite low cap alt right now, you would be piling in, which is very true. What happens when alt flows siphon back into the source of Bitcoin? So, and one thing that I want to do is go ahead and go to the BitMEX chart, and let's go ahead and take a look at the macro structure. And one thing that we tend to do often is to take the volume profile of a fixed range, okay? And again, the volume profile, we can see the areas or prices that have had the most supply demand, that have had the most volume, and that's really important to act as resistance or support. But again, when we tend to break those areas, that tends to be really bearish or bullish. And so if I go ahead and take the fixed range, right, of this previous area for Bitcoin, you're going to notice that the last time we had a very similar look, right? So this previous range last year looks a lot like a smaller range that we had back all through 2018, to where price capitulated down and eventually we had this curved bottom. And look what happened. Price, you would think that many people thought that it would hold right here, but it shot right back through it. We did have a retest, and then it continued on up to the yearly highs, back up to high 13,000s. Well, we basically have the same thing going on right here, right? We have the similar range here, right? We have the point of control, all right, the place with the most volume, around 10,150, 10.2. And as you can notice here, I'm going to go ahead and put this on the daily chart. Somewhat similar, right? We had some ranging below it. Look at this right here, some ranging below it, and eventually price shot just right up through it, right? And so again, this is what Cantor and Clark is talking about, when that we see price just kind of grind up towards this major area of the structure here, this POC, this point of control. When we see that, let me put this up a little bit further, right? But when we see that, when price tends to grind right underneath the resistance, that tends to be a bullish sign. It wasn't a strong rejection. We're seeing a grinding underneath the resistance. And typically what ends up happening is eventually it builds up, right? And an expansion happens and price shoots right through. So for me, I tend to agree that if we do break this 10,000, there's nothing keeping us from going up here. He's saying as high as 14,000, and I would say at least, looking up here to around mid to high $11,000, $12,000. And so that's one thing that you want to take a look at and notice the similarities of the two, right? The same thing, range breaks down in this same curve right here. And so just be on the lookout for that, as we could see basically a similar thing happen. And so that's one thing we want to take a look at. And as far as the last thing that we see here, and to go along just with what I just talked about now, again, you see him say, I don't care if Bitcoin farts around here for a while in this area that we're talking about, high 9,000s, and goes up in this area looking weak. In my experience, confusing moving slow with being weak is a dangerous mistake. So it's a slow grinds at resistance that rock complacent shorts to sleep. So again, many people tend to get complacent here. A lot of people start to pile in shorts. This must be the top, right? We're going to see a major pullback, and then what happens is you see a short squeeze push the price up over the POC. And again, what tends to happen is that those shorts have to close and then go long to make up for that. And so that's when you see a lot of longs and a lot of buying pressure start to come in and move up the price. And so these are things to think about. Could we see a pullback? Certainly so, but just be aware that the grinding up in this area for Bitcoin tends to actually be bullish, even though we could still see a potential pullback. Now, speaking of other bullish assets, right, we know that Ethereum has been very strong, currently up at 225. We saw as low as, 116, 118 just a few weeks ago, okay? And so if you see here in this market structure, Ethereum as well is currently at a potential resistance area. And so we see that this price was actually held as support, broke below, held as resistance, somewhat resistance here. And again, price seems to be stuck right here, at least on the weekly. The higher time frames tend to show a little bit better for Ethereum. And so we're at 225 now. The area to break above is 229. If we want to look from there, of course, right, and continue to move on up, probably the next spot would be around 260-ish, 259 will be a major potential area. And then from there, looking up to around over $300 as the next resistance. So again, Ethereum has a lot of room if it can break above these next two areas. And for me, I mean, really, once you get above this area right here, okay, notice this wick right here, and then the prior resistance area before it broke up and then held here. This is the probably the most major area as far as support resistance for Ethereum on the entire Ethereum chart, and that's around 360, 364. All I have to say is if you're not in Ethereum by 364 and it gets up there, it's going to move from there, and you're not going to see it below that price, maybe not for a long time. Again, we don't want to speculate here. We just know that a break above 364 is really bullish for Ethereum. And so if you're not in it, if you want to be in it, the time to be in is prior to 364. Now, 225 now, again, potential pullback eventually. As far as what I think it's something that you've got a while until we hit that. But again, you want to be aware that that is the area to get in Ethereum. After that, I'm sorry, you missed the bus. And so a lot of people tend to wait for pullbacks. We do see some trend reversals here. Again, pullbacks are to be expected. We could even see a multi-thousand pullback on Bitcoin back to 8,000 to 9,000, or we could see a potential, nobody knows, potential up to a run up from there. We could see a potential up to, like I said before, up in this area and then pull back, and then that actually be where the halving, where it tends to pull back around halving. We could see price move up, come back down here, and that be the place where Bitcoin bounces off of after a potential pullback for the halving. Now, if we want to compare Ethereum to Bitcoin, take a look at this. Over the past 4 weeks, we see a 33% gain with Ethereum to the Bitcoin chart. So Ethereum is definitely, it's been outperforming Bitcoin by a large margin here. And so just understand that if you've been in Ethereum, it's been a very good play. For me, I tend to hold 3 coins. I'm going to talk about the third coin here in a minute as far as long-term assets. I will trade any asset, but there are very far and few limited that I hold, even though there's a ton of great assets out there in cryptocurrency to hold that I don't necessarily hold, but I'm very open about what I do hold and what I like. And Ethereum is certainly one of these. Again, previous highs up on the USD chart, up around $1,400. Can it break that? I mean, I certainly think that it will, just like I think that Bitcoin will eventually break 20,000. So again, Ethereum, very good play here. And really what I want to talk about before I give away $100 in Bitcoin is let's look at a couple of privacy coins. And why I want to say this is that I think one of these is going to be the best play possibly in the crypto market, at least one of the best in the upcoming 2 years. And so if we take a look at Monero and Zcash, let's take a look at Monero really fast. And as you can see, Monero is at $81 right now. It's performing really well, just like Ethereum, just like a lot of the other altcoins. And honestly, you could throw a dart at any altcoin right now, or most altcoins, and get some profit off of it. So that's how good the market's been. But Monero, of course, what we've seen as far as the low was as low as mid 40s, and right now it's already done a 2x at 81. But what I want to talk about is, again, I think Monero is a fantastic altcoin, privacy coin overall. And what I want to do is just really make a point to why I think Zcash is really an even better buy, and why I think that it's still a really good buy compared to a lot of other assets, specifically even Monero. And that's if you look at the all-time high. Now, I know that we did go through an ICO boom, through a bubble. There's a lot of altcoins that'll never hit back their all-time highs. Monero is not one of those, and I don't think Zcash is either, right? They've got fantastic fundamentals. They're on major exchanges. They've got a great group of people working on these, right, as far as developers. And so there's a lot of good things about the communities with these. Now, specifically with Monero, if we take a look at the all-time high, right? The all-time high was at 469, give or take, right, depending on the exchange. Now, if we look at the low of this last cycle, we see that it hit as low as $37, okay? Now, that's quite a bit low, and even recently it hit as low, the local low, right, before this uptrend was at around $43. Now, what I'm looking at is not only the low here, but even the local low. And so that was $43 with an all-time high of $469. So you're looking at around a 10x. If you would have bought this around 40-something dollars, you're looking at a 10x away from the all-time high. And I do believe that it gets higher than over 469, which is a really good play, right? Again, we're looking at if Bitcoin goes to 80,000, we're looking at a 10x from here. So I think Monero is strong fundamentally. I think that it can see a great return. But why I'm using Monero chart is because I really want to show you the opportunity that many people missed, and that is Zcash, the Zcash bottom. So with Zcash, we saw a previous low. When Monero saw even lower, Zcash was at around, the low was around 40-something dollars. Recently, we saw Zcash hit as low as $25, okay? We saw Zcash hit almost half price of the Monero low. The thing about it is that Zcash, the previous high, wasn't 469. We're looking at almost a 2x of what Monero was at its all-time high. Why I'm saying this is that as I think Monero is going to break above potentially 469, I think Zcash has the potential to break over $900. And for Zcash to be as low as $25, being twice as high, an all-time high, but being half of what the low of Monero was, under $30 Zcash might possibly, in my opinion, the best buy out of any altcoin in the next uptrend. And so, no, can you get it at $25, $30, $40 now? You can't get it at that price. But where we're currently at is $70. Why do I still think that this is a phenomenal buy? That's because, again, we're looking at $10 less than the current Monero price of $80, an asset that had a twice as high all-time high that I think can actually outmatch that, and I think actually outperforms Monero in the upcoming 2 years. Do I own Zcash? I do own Zcash. Am I biased? Possibly. We all have bias, but in the end, the reason why I do own Zcash is because of the charts and the fundamentals that I see with the assets. So again, I do believe that Zcash is going to perform well. I believe that it eventually will hit all-time highs, and I believe that at $70, $10 under Monero right now, that it is a better buy than Monero if you're a fan of privacy coins. And so this is why I wanted to show you this chart and compare it with Monero, and that's a tale of two altcoins. Now let's go ahead and give away $100 of Bitcoin for one of you guys who actually engaged in the last video. So let's go ahead and do this. $100 random winner, last video. Goes to Scott. Sharinga, I think is your last name. Scott, thanks for the update, brother. Love you and Ryan's content. Thanks, Scott. I really appreciate that. And with that said, I'm going to go ahead and message you on the YouTube underneath your last comment and make sure that you see that so that we can get you $100 in Bitcoin. So again, if you are interested in winning $100, subscribe to the channel as well as leave a comment below. And the only other couple of things I want to talk about, I was talking about Zcash quite a bit. Again, another reason why I'm fundamentally bullish on Zcash, I'm just going to throw this up here. We don't have a lot of time for it, is because accredited investors can actually get into Zcash through Grayscale, right? The Grayscale actually has a Zcash trust. And so if you know about Grayscale, they have investment products for institutions. They have investment products for accredited investors. And you can use Grayscale to get Bitcoin Cash, even though I know that's not super impressive, Ethereum, Horizon, Litecoin, Stellar, XRP, Ethereum Classic, and Zcash is one of the few assets that they have. So again, for me to not only know that the chart looks good on Zcash, when accredited investors can also use Grayscale to buy into Zcash, to me, that's a little bit more bullish than Monero as far as the access to big money in order to flow into that. And we do know that whatever big money is into, it tends to perform well. Let's talk about performing well again. A couple other altcoins is Tezos, which is in price discovery, currently at 229. Kind of kicking myself. I think that it continues to go a lot higher. We will see some pullbacks, but in the end, the place to get into was below $2. And so we know now with a Coinbase staking that you can, I think you get over 5% staking a year for Tezos. That's a lot better than your local bank, right? So to actually put your Tezos somewhere, make money off of it with these exchange staking types of products that they're coming out with now, that's a very good thing. So again, Tezos is one of these that I think in the long run is that performs really well, right? Especially one of these that you can stake. I know Cosmos, also known as Atom, recently their founder left, I believe, and so that's been somewhat bearish overall. Even though you don't need the founder to continue on, Satoshi's no longer around, right, for Bitcoin, but in the end, it tends to make me a little bit more cautious with that. So when it comes to some of these types of altcoins that you can stake, I'm going to choose Tezos probably over Atom at this point in time, over Cosmos. And so again, price discovery continues to move up. No telling where it can go, but for now, it's performing quite well. Of course, the other altcoin that's performing quite well is Link. And Link, again, tends to be not quite in price discovery. We know that it blasted up pretty high when it got put on Coinbase, and this is the Coinbase chart. But again, the place to buy was under $2 because since then, Link has just been going up from there. And so even recently, right, it's just phenomenal. The price action here on Link, just like it's going straight up. And so Link has also been a phenomenal asset to hold whenever Bitcoin is not performing well. It tends to perform well when Bitcoin is not performing well. So in the end, just know that it's been a great hedge overall for Bitcoin holders. Another coin, I'll be honest with you, I don't own any Tezos and I don't own any Link, and I know you guys think that I'm crazy, but on any dip, I'm probably potentially looking to get into a couple of these altcoins here. So these are some of my favorite altcoins, even though I'm not in Monero, even though I'm not in Tezos, even though I'm not in Link. I think that they have a big potential. And one specifically thing about Link is I showed this through the Glassnode chart. As you're going to notice here, the number of transactions and transfers for Link continues to go higher and higher with the higher lows across the board. And so since last May, the transaction count, talking about Chainlink and these oracles and the usage of this continues just to grow, right? And so overall, you can look at on-chain data, and this is specifically with glassnode.com through their free studio. And honestly, it's phenomenal. So if you want to check out on-chain metrics, you can go to Glassnode. I'm on their trader advisory board, but I'm showing you this because, again, this is a bullish sign when it's kind of like hash power, right, for Bitcoin. Whenever you see this growth like this potentially on-chain, this is a good thing. So overall, fundamentally, this is a fantastic thing for Chainlink, so keep an eye on that. Again, something that I'm looking at potentially if we do see some dips here. Tezos, Link are a couple of those coins, probably continue to get into Ethereum as well as Zcash, and of course, Bitcoin is going to be the bulk of my overall portfolio. And so with that said, just want to talk about the market today, talk about some of these altcoins that are performing well, talk about the resistance and support areas. of some of these, specifically looking at Ethereum, what it can do, especially when it gets over $360, that the train's going to leave from there. How Zcash is just has underperformed, and now it has potential to be one of the best performing assets, or as far as return of value, return of investment in the upcoming bull market. Chainlink and Tezos continue to do well too, and we know that with Bitcoin overall hovering right below the resistance line, slowly grinding away, that it could have a nice pop to it. So again, be on the lookout for more info from us here as far as from BlockRoots. Again, if you haven't subscribed, click subscribe below, leave a comment and engage. We'd love to have you in the giveaway and have you a part of this community. If you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. You can find us also at blockroots.com. Again, you guys have a great weekend. Trade safe and trade effectively, and we'll see you guys soon.